So Google has created a new quantum computer that can perform a specific type of calculation in just 5 minutes. A task that would take the fastest supercomputers in the world 700 trillion times longer than the age of the universe. But how is this possible? In the previous video of this series, we saw how computers evolved from a 2,000-year-old mechanical device to microprocessors made of billions of transistors. We also explored how this technology evolved, which scientific laws we exploited, and how this journey has brought us to the beginning of a new era. We're talking about the quantum era. In 1981, at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, the brilliant scientist Richard Feynman presented an observation during a lecture on simulating physics with computers. He noted that quantum systems, like atoms, molecules, and particles, operate on the principles of quantum mechanics, and their quantum behaviors are so complicated that they cannot be understood using the straightforward binary logic of classical computers. To understand them, we need a computer that operates on quantum laws. His statement became quite famous. Nature is not classical. If you want to simulate nature, you better make it quantum mechanical. In fact, Feynman proposed some beautiful ideas that would later become the backbone of quantum computers. He suggested that today we use transistors as on-off switches in binary language, meaning we create logical operations using zeros and their combinations. Similarly, in quantum computers, we can use the spin of electrons. Spin up represents 1 and spin down represents 0. But just assigning up or down spins to electrons won't make the computer powerful. So where does the unimaginable power of quantum computers come from? Well, it comes from two very powerful principles of quantum mechanics, namely quantum superposition and quantum entanglement. To understand how these powerful principles are used in quantum computers, we refer to a very important experiment in quantum mechanics, the double-slit experiment. Now pay attention, because many people think they understand this experiment well, but they are often mistaken. Without understanding this experiment, you won't be able to grasp quantum computers properly. So, imagine a straight plate with two parallel slits made in it, and in front of that plate, you fire some grains of sand. If you have a screen placed behind the plate, what kind of pattern will you see there? Well, two parallel lines, right. Is this common sense? The thing that isn't common sense is that now, if you fire atomic particles like electrons or photons instead of sand, you won't see this pattern on the screen. On the other side, instead, you'll see a different pattern. Now, what is this thing? Why is this happening? This pattern is called an interference pattern. And this pattern creates waves because, unlike particles, the behavior of waves is such that they interact with themselves. They interfere. So, are all atomic particles not actually particles but waves instead? We were taught that they are particles, right? These are indeed particles, but they behave like waves. Their movement is like a wave in our world. That is why we say that these particles show duality. Now, when they were fired in front of two slits, observe whether they pass through both slits together like a wave. This means that even though there is one particle in quantity, it was able to pass through both slits at the same time. This property of these particles is called superposition. They can be present in two places at the same time. Now, this thing is difficult for our common sense to digest. It's difficult. Hang in there. It will start to make sense as we go along. Now, imagine if we can somehow use this superposition principle, we can do multiple combinations of calculations or computing simultaneously. So, how would that be? A similar idea first came to the father of quantum computing, David Deutsch, in the 1980s, who then started working on this very idea. For now, let's go back to our experiment. Now tell me, if a wave is passing through two slits, what will happen? That wave will break down as soon as it passes through the slits. Multiple waves will interact with each other and create interference. Now, there are two types of interference: constructive interference and destructive interference. If two waves, they of the same size and structure combine in one interference, it is called constructive interference. And in this case, because they are being combined, the size of that wave will increase further because of adding. And if two waves are cancelling out each other due to late interference, then it is called destructive interference. And in a case, those waves will become smaller or will totally cancel out each other. Now, let's go back a bit. Pay attention to the bright stripes. Wherever you see these bright stripes, those are the areas where constructive interference has occurred. That means the waves put to have converged and amplified. That's why more particles have accumulated there. Now, friends, I'm going to hold this for a few seconds, so pay a little attention and think about it. And let me know what we learned from this. The first thing is that you cannot pinpoint exactly where a particle will be, but you can definitely guess where it is most likely to be found. The second thing is that you can also predict where the chances of not finding that particle are. This is solely due to the wave behavior of that particle, which is not deterministic but probabilistic. This means you cannot say with 100% accuracy where you will find those particles, but you can use probability math to make the best guess about where those particles might be found. The bright areas shown on the slide are all highly probable areas where you might find any fired particle. The brighter and larger the area, the higher the probability of finding a particle there. Since we learned that the quantum world is based on probabilities rather than fixed outcomes, it doesn't seem so chaotic anymore, and we started to understand it and create our own rules. For example, in 1926, German physicist Max Born created a formula that could exactly predict the probability of a particle being present at a certain location. This means we started to make uncertainty certain, and these observations played a significant role in the development of quantum computers and algorithms. Look, in the double-slit experiment, particles basically showed that they could travel in multiple paths simultaneously and ultimately indicate where the chances of finding them are highest. Can't this principle be used in a computer? To solve a problem where there are billions of options, but only one correct answer or a few select ones, like breaking a high-security data encryption code? Well, in principle, if we break it down, the basic goal of creating a quantum computer would be to use the probabilistic principles of quantum mechanics and this effect correctly. We could repeatedly combine various similar waves and their probabilities during calculations, and after several processing steps, we could get closer to our answer. Just like in the double-slit experiment, we saw that those waves were interacting in a very particular way to indicate where the particle could land. Similarly, in quantum computers, we can interfere waves and suppress all destructive or average wave patterns, focusing on those particular constructive interference patterns, which would amplify the correct answer and present it to us. Basically, without quantum processing, we can literally construct the correct answer through the interference of billions of waves. For this, we will need some special algorithms in that computer to mathematically direct this process. And this is the fundamental principle behind quantum computers: to eliminate all destructive interference and regular waves, eliminate the noise, and allow the waves that are constructively interfering together to combine. Imagine it like all the coherent waves in music are harmonizing, and the correct answer will most certainly be that. Now, let's understand this principle in action with an example. First, apply a bit of common sense, then think with the correct interpretation of quantum mechanics. First of all, let me clarify the basics that in a normal classical computer, digital information, for information transfer, classical bits are used, which are basically silicon transistors. As we learned in the last video, the switching on or off of these transistors transmits information in the form of zeros or ones. All the programs, worlds, images, whatever you see on the computer screen are made from these codes filled with ones and zeros. And the most important thing about these classical bits is that at one time, they will denote either a 1 or a 0. Okay, now let's talk about quantum computers. Well, to transfer information in these, a very special kind of bits are used, called qubits. Whether these qubits will be 1 or 0 is decided by their particle spin. Now, up spin means 1 and down spin means 0. Now, because qubits have a very special property, called superposition, because of this, they can equally show both states at the same time. For example, if you toss a coin d until the coin falls down, it will not reveal its state, and mathematically, it can be written as an average of both heads and tails. Similarly, in the case of a qubit, until that qubit is measured, it can exist in both states at the same time. Binary return and 0. Now let me show you a glimpse of the real power of a qubit. Imagine this. There is a complicated problem like a maze at night with hundreds of paths to move forward, but only one path leads out of the maze. Now, in a traditional computer, to solve such a problem, the computer would have to go to the end of each path to find out which path actually leads out. But in the case of qubits, remember that they can exist in both states, that is, state 1 and 0, simultaneously. Whereas a classical bit can exist in only one state. And that's why one qubit can simultaneously explore 2 paths and determine where these paths lead at the same time. In the language of quantum computing, this is called parallelism. But from here, the magic has just begun. If you increase the number of bits even slightly, you will start to understand its true power. Because the processing power doesn't increase linearly, but exponentially. Take 2 bits where 4 states exist, like state 1, 1 and 1, state 2, 1 and 0, state 3, 0 and 1, and state 4, 0 and 0. Again, all states can exist at the same time. This means they can travel through 4 parts of the table simultaneously. In the case of 3 qubits, 2 to the power of 3, meaning 8 parts, can travel simultaneously. And as we keep increasing, if a simple quantum processor is made with 100 qubits, do you know how many paths it will process simultaneously? Just imagine 2 to the power of 100. How many paths that is? It's a number with 1.26 followed by 30 digits, which is even larger than the number of items in the entire observable universe. And on our table, there were only 100 possible paths. Even if there were 1 billion possible paths, this processor would solve it in a snap. That's why Google's new processor did in 5 minutes what today's supercomputers would take 10 septillion years to accomplish. But it doesn't stop here. Before I talk about the principle of quantum entanglement in quantum computers, let me also clarify that the table example we took is a slightly simplified version to understand what's actually happening. In reality, those qubits are literally transmitting billions and trillions of waves in every direction, and the quantum computer is tracking their interference. Finally, the computer separates the destructive interference and decodes the constructive interferences to find the correct answer. This means that the place where most of the waves are coherently in sync is the correct answer. Because in the world of quantum physics, ultimately, the universe always prefers the shortest path to reach any destination. And that's why most of the waves eventually reach the right answer after interference. This is the same observation that Richard Feynman noticed, that there can be billions of paths from point A to point B, but it is the unique tendency of one particle that, probabilistically speaking, it will most certainly always travel the shortest path, and Feynman mathematically proved this by developing the Feynman path integral. Now, this is such a fundamental principle that it is the only principle that governs our entire universe, and no theory has been able to contradict it so far, even relativity and quantum mechanics. So friends, where have we reached? Well, we have an idea of how quantum computers use superposition for parallel computing. Now let's understand how these computers use another powerful principle, quantum entanglement. Look, to put it briefly, Quantum entanglement is basically a phenomenon where two or more qubits become linked or entangled as if they are magically connected and start sharing information with each other. No matter how much distance or difference there is between them, understand it like this. If one B is moving from left to right and it becomes entangled with another B, then both Bs will start moving in the same way from left to right as if they are linked by some magical thread. Now, this only happens with quantum particles. I just gave an example with Bs. But in the case of quantum particles, it doesn't matter if one particle is on Earth and the other is at the edge of the universe. They will remain connected to each other. Plus, the communication between these two is almost instantaneous, which can make it very useful for signaling between systems. However, it's important to note that you cannot transfer any classical information due to the limits of relativity. So, this principle basically allows multiple qubits to work together as a team, enabling calculations to be performed in parallel and extremely fast. So now, after understanding the fundamental principles of quantum computers, everything seems right, doesn't it? Boss, we've seen how powerful these computers can be. What needs to be done now? Just get them installed in every home. With this, we'll be able to do regular tasks very quickly, right? And how much fun it will be to play those real-world field games on these computers. Well, I just want to address two very important misconceptions. First of all, these quantum computers, as you've seen, are designed to solve a completely different kind of problem. They are not made to run Word, Excel, or PUBG like your PC. Problems where there could be billions, and trillions of keys for one lock. Find the correct one, quickly. Find the factorial of 200-digit numbers. And that too fast? Basically where we need to find some interesting patterns in an extreme amount of data. Or we need to simulate quantum worlds, atoms and molecules so that we can understand their properties. Those problems where extreme parallelism is required. And usually these problems are not something that common people like you and me deal with. So far, quantum quantums have not advanced to the point where they can perform all general activities, now like a computer's operating system. Today, quantum algorithms are designed to solve very specific types of select problems, and gradually, we are increasing the number of these algorithms and machines. Secondly, we will be able to install quantum computers in our homes only then. When we learn to carry out quantum processes at room temperature like our nature does. The fact is that even today, we do not know how nature is able to take in light and carbon dioxide at room temperature in plants and convert it into sugar. Photosynthesis is a quantum phenomenon that we still do not know exactly how it occurs at room temperature, because so far we have only been able to facilitate quantum interactions at extremely low temperatures, close to minus 273 degrees Celsius. Look at this. It's a quantum computer, but in reality, it's less of a quantum computer and more of a refrigerator. This is called an inner dilution refrigerator. The quantum chip is very small and located at the base of this refrigerator. As you can see, in this refrigerator, you can see these large thick pipes. Through these, helium or nitrogen is pumped down to the lower floor. Then you are seeing all these cold viruses. Through them, signals pass via microwaves and are finally relayed to a classical computer. When this computer is turned on, it is placed inside a large cylinder-like enclosure called an outer dilution refrigerator to protect the processor from the external environment, the external heat, and electromagnetic radiation. Because the biggest enemy of a quantum processor is quantum decoherence. That is, external interference enters their waves, causing their wave nature to collapse. But basically, you must already know the fact that quantum particles behave like waves. But as soon as they interact with another particle or energy, their waveform collapses, and they become a single particle from a wave of other possibilities. That means they lose their quantum properties, such as superposition and quantum entanglement, and they become useless to us. The same thing happens in the case of qubits. As soon as they come into any kind of interaction, they immediately lose their quantum state. They collapse, and this is called decoherence. To protect against this decoherence, quantum processors are kept extremely close to absolute zero temperature, which is the lowest temperature ever possible in the universe. Because this state is literally free from any type of unnecessary motion and heat. Do you see these pipes? This is all part of the cooling system that maintains the absolute zero temperature. But even after this, it is not foolproof. You won't believe it, but even after all this, qubits can only remain active for a few microseconds before they immediately decohere. This short time frame during which the qubit remains in superposition or coherence is called coherence time. And this is the biggest challenge in making quantum computers a reality, where all major companies' quantum computers, are getting stuck. And exactly here, Google's development has also achieved a very big milestone this time. Lipmark Computers is the wild card. It could be a game changer. It could change the entire landscape of artificial intelligence. Google's chip is touted as another technological breakthrough in under 5 minutes. The chip solves problems that would take today's most powerful computers 10 trillion years. Google's development has surpassed all superconducting computers and increased coherence time by 5 times. Despite that, it's known that the coherence time of Google's development is still only 100 microseconds. That means just few milliseconds. This few milliseconds is the duration for which one qubit can remain active and perform its calculations. In such a short time, what kind of calculations can it really perform? If you have seen the news headlines, in these headlines, Google itself has claimed that their computers have demonstrated calculations for 5 minutes. So if their one qubit is collapsing in just 100 microseconds, then how are they able to perform calculations for 5 minutes? They do it with the help of a special technique, which is literally the backbone of quantum computing. Quantum error correction, QEC. With this technique, quantum computers literally correct errors, right? Meaning they selectively correct decoherent qubits and continue to forward the processed information so that the show goes on. Basically, think of it like a relay race. Each qubit performs calculations in tiny parts and collapses in a fraction of a second, relaying or transferring its information to other qubits. And then those qubits continue to do the same. So if a qubit's immediate coherence time is 100 microseconds, its error correction will keep happening in at least 10 microseconds so that the information continues to progress. Now, how does this error correction actually happen in real time? $1,000,000 question, right? Because according to the laws of quantum mechanics, if you physically interact with these qubits in any way, even if you touch or measure them, they will immediately collapse their quantum state. So how is it possible that computers are able to fix errors without breaking the quantum state? Well, this is the very problem at the heart of quantum computing. How exactly is this fixed? To understand this, first, you need to understand that there are 2 types of errors in quantum computers. Number 1, bit flip error, meaning the information of the bit changes. A 1 becomes a 0 in its place, or a 0 becomes a 1. The second type of error is phase flip error, meaning the dynamics between the entangled particles in the system change. For example, 0 plus 1 becomes 0 minus 1. The probability of both will remain 1 and 0, meaning 50-50. But when a minus comes before 1, it will interact differently with the other entangled particles, which can introduce errors in the calculation. Now, to understand how these 2 types of errors are fixed, imagine this. You are building a sandcastle that starts to deteriorate as soon as it comes in contact with wind or water, so you have to protect it from the wind or water, right? How long can you keep it protected? Our qubit has the same problem. It cannot interact with anything by mistake. But now, if you make 3 exact replicas of your sandcastle, then even if one sandcastle gets damaged by wind or water, you will still have other replicas to consider for fixing the damaged sandcastle. Well, in quantum error correction, this popular technique called redundancy is also used. In this technique, basically, though one main information logical qubit is encoded into 3 physical qubits. This means that the one logical qubit carrying the information is now distributed across 3 physical qubits. So its basic equation will become like this. Instead of 0 plus 1, we will write this information such that one logical qubit is equal to 0, 0, 0 plus 1 on 1. In this form, we will store it. Now, let's say if one bit, 0, flips to 1, then the equation will become logical qubit is equal to 1 0 0 plus 1 1 on. Now, to rectify this error, some helper qubits, or what are called ancillary qubits, will be deployed through quantum gates, which will precisely entangle with the errors. Just like there are logic gates in quantum circuits that logically direct the flow of electrons, there are quantum logic gates. They logically direct the wave motion of these quantum particles. Note here that those extra helper qubits, being quantum particles themselves, can easily interact with the error qubit. And then, if we measure those helper qubits, they will collapse and also tell us the exact type and location of the error. The beauty of this advanced technique is that the entire logical quantum system remains intact because we haven't disturbed it at all. We only interacted the helper qubits with the error qubits and measured only those helper qubits. After the error is exactly identified, they can be flipped back through logic gates and the calculation will continue. This entire process can be completed within 10 microseconds. Now, if we talk about the phase flip error, 3 physical qubits, 0, 0, 0, papas 1, 1, 1, make 3 copies in this form, plus, 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 minus, minus, minus. In this, helper qubits scan the entire quantum state and look for mismatches. If a mismatch is found, it is identified, and the syndrome measurement, i.e., the code for error measurement, is extracted. Quantum logic gates are then applied to fix it. The Shor code, created by Peter Shor, is one such popular algorithm that can protect against both bit flip and phase flip errors, and can perform complex numerical calculations using quantum logic gates, such as finding the factors of large numbers. Basically, by simplifying everything, quantum computers entangle qubits and create many replicas. As soon as any qubit decoheres, it is reconstructed from the group through some special algorithms, effectively bringing the qubit back to life. This way, information is not lost. Instead, other entangled qubits extracted and continue the calculation like a relay race. Similarly, Google's Willow has achieved a breakthrough result in its quantum error correction code, where they have increased the qubits RS and reduced the error rate. But even then, any company's quantum computer, like Google's, IBM's, Honeywell's, etc., is still far from solving real-life problems and computations big. These are the 3 major problems. Number 1, the stability of the quantum state. Number 2, effective algorithms. And number 3, real-time error corrections. Improving these to scale effectively and economically is currently one of the biggest challenges. If we can overcome these challenges, our future could change completely. Well, the doors to a new world will open, which you and I cannot even imagine today. First of all, the pharma and medical industry will be completely revolutionized, because even today, the process of making new drugs is like finding the right key among millions of keys for a lock. Born, we have to understand how drug molecules interact with complex proteins in the body. By trying possible combinations of molecules in the billions, we have to simulate complex chemical reactions at the atomic level. And all this is done in classical computers by creating their 3D models, which are extremely resource intensive. But since nature itself is quantum mechanical and works in a quantum mechanical way, like the photosynthesis process, if we set quantum computers to decode the right drug combination, there will be no need to rely on luck, spend 15 to 20 years and billions of dollars as we do today. This new drug discovery could happen in just a few months. Number 2, epidemics and pandemics that have historically taken the most lives, we can finally say goodbye to them as well. Because any virus or pathogen, we will be able to study them at the molecular level and predict their billions of possible deadly mutations in advance and stop them before they spread. Which means these viruses will never be able to reach their tipping point. Even vaccine development, meaning the perfect combination to fight them, will be developed in just a few weeks. Number 3, and this development will be the craziest. Today, the cause behind many diseases is the malfunction of proteins in the body, like cancers, which affect protein folding due to mutations. Parkinson's disease became Alzheimer's disease, and exactly that. We don't have solutions for these diseases today. This is because proteins, barkarasam say, are extremely complicated molecules, and creating their 3D models, simulating every possible folding, then interacting new drugs with them and observing in a shady, complex ecosystem. This is an extremely complicated and resource-intensive task, but quantum computers can accomplish this task in just a few weeks to months. So many diseases that we consider incurable today might have cures available to us tomorrow. In fact, the human lifespan could extend to 100 to 150 years, because we will be able to understand our own biology at the DNA level and optimize it with anti-aging, drugs, supplements, lifestyle, and medical facilities. Just think about the ancient ages when science had not developed. A person on average lived only about 30 to 35 years. But today, in developed countries, we live up to 85 years. Extending this life expectancy to 100 to 150 years is not going to be that difficult. As much as you are thinking. Number 4. We will see the greatest benefits of quantum computers in the space industry. The universe also operates on quantum laws. And that's why, by modeling these laws, we will literally be able to accurately model complicated physics phenomena like black holes and quantum gravity, which today we find difficult to do. It is impossible. We can even solve the mystery of dark energy and dark matter. Just imagine what secrets of the universe we could uncover. We could literally become the kings of our galaxy, because now we will be able to very accurately predict the motions and positions of all 11 planets, stars, asteroids, moons every second. Today, to make a single trip to Mars, we have to solve millions of variables. Quantum computers will perform these calculations in the blink of an eye to keep the spacecraft's trajectory correct. We can develop new materials that can revolutionize space technology and engineering by developing better spacecraft and rocket designs. And finally, enable the search for alien life. Now, the potential can be very easy, because in today's date, we are being distracted from finding alien life by millions of technosignatures, meaning radio frequencies or electromagnetic waves from which we have to separate which ones are coming from intelligent alien life and which are just interferences or noise, which is an extremely complicated task. The Breakthrough Listen project of SETI has been doing this for 20 years and still no success. Quantum computers will do this work during holidays. Also, based on biosignatures and Drake's equation, they can literally help us scan large planetary data sets, focusing on those sets where alien life might actually exist. Number 5, in the world of physics and mathematics, exponentially new things will unfold, because we will be able to find solutions to complex math equations and quantum mechanics problems in an instant, leading to the invention of new technology, creating a domino effect of advancement. Number 6, AI, this artificial intelligence, and quantum computers are like two long-lost brothers. And they are made to be together because the exponential speed of quantum computers and the self-learning ability of AI will infinitely accelerate the advancement of human civilization. And with the development of AI, concepts and ideas on how to improve the hardware and electronics of quantum computers will speed up with the help of AI. In the end, these two will keep evolving each other forever, and it will just never ever stop. Do you think today is when we talk about Kardashev Type 2 to Type 3 civilizations, such advanced civilizations seem impossible to us, but all of a sudden, after unlocking quantum powers, it doesn't seem impossible anymore. But yes, we also have to be cautious, because some of the most brilliant minds have already warned us that we have to handle AI and quantum computers very carefully. My work fears that we call significant harm to the world. I think if this technology goes wrong, it can go quite wrong, is one of the biggest. So, the endless possibilities of quantum computers, this is just basically what I have told you. So far, we haven't even properly understood their true applications. Literally, wherever our imagination goes, the application potential of these quantum computers can go there. We just need a little bit of need and creativity. And with that, friends, our short series on the entire evolution journey of computers comes to an end. If you enjoyed it, learned something new, and are positive and excited about the future of humans, then do share this video with your friends and family members. Thanks for watching. Hail Science!